What first comes to mind when you hear the word seduction? It may sound complicated or practically impossible in this day and age. You may even think of seduction as something dark or even evil. Problem is, nearly all men's dating advice on seduction in the past didn't exactly help matters. Well, in this month's Masterclass for Men, we're going to reclaim seduction and talk about how to master it as an art. Better yet, you'll emerge with everything you need to seduce women the way they love to be seduced, the way they actually fantasize about being seduced. If you're listening to this episode within a few days of when it dropped, grab your ticket for this live event happening this coming Wednesday, September 27th at 8 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. You can do that right now by going to mountaintoppodcast.com/masterclass. That's mountaintoppodcast.com/masterclass. Being a master seducer is what separates the men from the boys when it comes to attracting women. Don't miss this one-of-a-kind event, which is frankly long overdue. Seduction as an art form, this month's Masterclass for Men. This coming Wednesday, the 27th of September at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Expect an original and completely different approach to seduction that will change the way you look at it forever. Reserve your ticket at mountaintoppodcast.com/masterclass. And now, my longtime friend and colleague, Cyndi Olin, joins me. Let's talk about second dates.
Live from the mist-enshrouded mountaintop fortress that is X&Y Communications headquarters, you're listening to the world-famous Mountaintop Podcast. And now, here's your host, Scott McKay.
Greetings out there, gentlemen, all of you all across the fruited plain. Welcome to yet another episode of the world-famous Mountaintop Podcast. I am your host, Scott McKay, at Scott McKay on YouTube, Twitter, and just about any other social media platform out there with the exception of Instagram and I guess now Threads, where I'm at Real Scott McKay. So I hope you'll check us out on there, also at mountaintoppodcast.com. And I also trust you're already a part of the Facebook group, the Mountaintop Summit on Facebook. But if you're not, definitely join on there and jump into the conversation, gentlemen. We'd be happy to have you. Today, I have a longtime friend of mine, an erstwhile running mate over at Clubhouse. We used to do a room there during COVID, back when Clubhouse was a thing. She and I get along on just about every aspect of dating and relationship advice. And she works mostly with women, so it's always a treat to get her on this show and have her talk to you guys. I'm talking, of course, about my good friend Cyndi Olin from Tucson, Arizona. Cyndi, welcome back to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Scott. I always love our conversations, and I just know this is going to be no different. It's a great topic too.
Yeah, well, sometimes bringing the controversy brings the downloads, but you and I tend to get along on everything. So we're going to have to bring the fun and drop a lot of knowledge on these guys to make up for it, right?
Exactly. It might even shock them with a few of the knowledge pieces that we're going to hit them with today, hopefully.
Yeah, and let's not sell ourselves short either. We may devolve into a raging shouting match, which
we could. You never know, Scott. I mean,
that would feel a little bit fabricated between you and I.
It would.
Anyway, today's topic is one that I don't think have ever covered here on this show. Typically on this show, what we try to do is look for topics, especially after all these episodes, going on 400 of them now, that find a new angle on dating advice, on relationship advice, being a better man, and kind of stay away from the ones that have been really well traveled. But sometimes that means certain topics get, well, I don't know, for lack of a better way to put it, lost in the shuffle a little bit. So today we're going to kind of roll back a little bit and talk kind of on a grand scale, if you want to call it that, about second dates. Now, this all started, Cyndi, when you wrote a pretty good email to your audience about second dates, your audience, of course, being almost entirely women. Just for the benefit of these guys listening, what was the content of that email in particular?
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for asking. So it was about having a great first date and getting confused around, why a man doesn't follow up right away after a first date leading to a second date when, you felt like it went great. The night ended. You might have even talked about making plans in the future, and he doesn't follow up right away. So I talk about some of the reasons why that happens, and it's not necessarily what you think. A lot of times classic dating advice will say, oh, the date didn't really go that well in his book, or he thinks you're just not that interested, or he's not ready for commitment, when that's not necessarily true. Many men that are healthy, grounded, know who they are, they're focused on different things. They might take a little bit of time to connect with themselves and decide, do I really want to pursue this? They also like to build anticipation. And there's some other aspects of testing compatibility. They want to know when they do reach out to you, how are you going to show up when they give you a little bit of space? So when they give a female a little bit of space, we're talking about men and women here. And they have fears too, right? They don't want to come on too strong. There's many reasons why it is. And some men are old-fashioned romantics. So they want to create a little bit of distance in that courtship phase, which is what I was saying earlier, and build that anticipation and really create a connection with you. And they also know that healthy connections take time to build. And we live in a world where it's so fast paced, and we're used to instant gratification. And this is a different take on that as well.
Yeah, you mentioned several things there, the last of which being that the guy doesn't really want to move that quickly on this. And indeed, Cyndi, we've all been taught that if we call a woman like very shortly after a successful date, we're going to come off as needy and clingy. She's going to put us in the just be friend zone because we weren't much of a challenge. I mean, that's the classic advice there. But right at the beginning, when you rattled off some reasons, there were three big ones. Mm-hmm. That I think we could illuminate a little bit there. The first one is she thought the date went well and he didn't, right?
Right.
And the one thing that comes to mind there is this happens all the time, and it's not gender specific. One of us is real gung-ho. We're really attracted. We're like, wow, I hit the jackpot. The other person is thinking not so much. Let's tap the brakes there. And specifically when it comes to men, I think men more than women realize very much fear hurting a woman's feelings or perhaps getting an angry response from her when we aren't pleased with her. So men will go, oh, yeah, no. Yeah, the whole yeah, no thing from the past 15 years that's emerged that I still don't understand.
Oh, yeah, no.
People didn't go, no, yeah, no, 20 years ago. That's relatively new in our culture. No, yeah, no, I had a great time. I'll be calling you. And crickets. The guy never calls her again. That's because he didn't have a great time or he wasn't so interested. And sometimes, well, a lot of times, if not most of the time, women will be left scratching their heads when that happens. I thought he liked me, but then nothing happened. And that drives women nuts. They're like, I kind of wish he just would have been honest with me so I wouldn't have been hanging by the phone. The second one that you mentioned was that maybe he thought I didn't like him. Mm-hmm. This happens all the time because women, in turn, and you can back me up on this or argue with me, hey, this is where we might get that juicy argument. Right. Women are taught, hey, you don't want to come on too strong with a guy because then you'll look like a slut or you'll look like you're too forward or too loose a woman. And so sometimes women let that pendulum swing all the way to the other side where they don't give a guy any indicators of attraction at all. And this guy goes, well, I'm not going to call her back, I'll just look stupid because she clearly wasn't having a good time. So why should I even try? And then the third one you mentioned is because he's commitment phobic. Now, see, Cyndi, one date, come on. I mean,
right.
I mean, why would a guy be commitment phobic because he doesn't want to go on a second date?
Well, I agree. I don't think that's true at all.
Well, what I was going to add is maybe not so fast. Maybe that's where the 4 or 5 day buffer comes in, so she doesn't go into girlfriend mode so quickly on him. That's been talked about before.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. I want to circle back to the one that you were sharing about how he may not think that she's that into them.
Nice Jen Psaki imitation there.
Yes.
Circling back.
And here's why. Sometimes too, women are nervous. Maybe they've been out of the dating scene for a while. So they might be really in their heads and acting a little stiff or not realizing they're not showing a lot of interest. You know, just like a man or a woman could easily go into interview mode of, what are you looking for? By when? What's your 5-year plan? Instead of just being relaxed and light on the date, right? So that's a possibility too. Those things do happen. And you know, something for the guys to say to a woman is say, hey, you know, take that chance and even say, hey, if I were to ask you out again, would you say yes?
Or maybe just suggest it.
Or suggest it.
Allude to it. Yeah.
Allude, yeah.
Yeah. A couple things there. First of all, indeed, men are taught by most men's dating advice, even the pickup artist stuff, that women have everything figured out socially. They don't fear rejection at all. They are the choosers. You're supposed to chase them. They enter every single interaction with a guy, if it's about to turn romantic or potentially so, with the utmost amount of confidence and even practically arrogance. They're just dying to reject you.
And so not true.
It's absolutely not true at all. So many women lack social skill, self-awareness, you know, go on. You want to jump on this one, go for it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, women are nervous. They're trying, you know, you're right. They might lack that awareness, or they get really caught up in their head, which means they can't really see what's going on with the man in front of them. And they're, you know, even if they say they're an empath or intuitive, they're little,
they're not,
they're not able to even tap into that because they're way too in their head, and they can't just, you know, one of the ways that I, you know, invite my clients to approach dating is light. Like you're meeting a new potential friend and just letting it unfold instead of being, you know, putting so much pressure on yourself for it to go somewhere. It's easier just to approach it from a place of, wow, what am I going to learn from this person? How can I have a really great time and invite that from this person in front of me, rather than focusing on, oh, is this going to turn into the love of my life? People put way too much pressure on themselves to do that.
I'll tell you what, a couple of things there. First of all, I have to say this, and I don't think I've ever said this in my out loud voice before, but do women ever tend to greatly overestimate their supernatural giftedness? Mm-hmm. Oh, I'm an empath. I'm clairvoyant. I can see, and they can't. They're just normal like you and I. They've just read too many books on the subject.
Right.
But more importantly here, this idea of being light, especially on a first date, is just a massive, massive, hugely important point. I talk a lot, Cyndi, to these guys about being warm and light. I call it warm levity, you know, because that would be what you call being warm and light, right? Mm-hmm. Most guys are so dead serious. My point here is they're leading with this. You know, this is the card that they're leading with, and women simply follow suit. And if they're going to be so serious and ask questions and get deep or even negative or dark, what do they expect? Do they expect the woman to rescue this situation? No, he's supposed to lead. Yet so few guys lead with warm levity. The day I started approaching first meetings with women with warm levity is the day I had a whole lot more women and a whole lot happier women in my life from the jump. I mean, from Jump Street. I would get on a date and got outside of my head, like you've so eloquently already recommended. And instead of worrying about how I look and how it was going for me, because, I had a little run there where it went pretty well. So I stopped worrying about it maybe naturally. And I started gazing across the table at this woman who needed that assurance herself because she's human just like me. And I started just uttering simple phrases like, hey, you look even better than your pictures. Or, you know what? Hey, we're only 5-10 minutes in here and I feel like I've known you for 10 years. I already feel like I know you. This is great. Or, you know what? This is already going well. I'm already having fun. Or this is going great. Let's just relax and have fun here. I mean, I don't give the whole police order to relax, pal, to a woman because that famously gets the opposite result, especially with women. But I think you get my drift. I think when men lead with this warm levity, with this ability to relax a woman and help her feel at home, that's what the first date is for. The first date is simply a very informal test. If the word test can peacefully coexist with warm levity, I'm not so sure, but it is what it is. It's a test of whether we actually like each other and get along. That's it. That's all the first date is for.
Right. It's so true. It's just like, let's see, what's our energies like together? Can we share a little laugh? Are we open to continuing to get to know one another? Great. Check those boxes. Let's go. It doesn't need to be overly complicated. And I feel like you spoke into this. Men and women both easily overcomplicate this. And I love the warm levity. If men approach dating with warm levity and women with lightness and a growth mindset, rather than focusing on, is he going to like me? What's going to happen next? Staying in the present moment and also focusing on, well, how do I want to show up? I want to show up in my joy and my lightness, or maybe I want to work on a certain area of being more open and vulnerable. Maybe that's been hard for me. So opening myself up to that, then you're not going to worry about whether or not, oh, does he like me? Are we going to, what's going to happen in the next 3, 4, 5 dates? You're just being present and enjoying the moment with them.
Now, you mentioned the next 4 or 5 dates there. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. We have a topic on the table here, which is the second date. So
right.
Let's just, for the sake of the topic du jour, make the brave and perhaps ill-advised assumption that these two soldier through their first date. They actually like each other. Someone makes a bold suggestion to the other that we get together again, and that second date actually happens. First of all, what should they do on the second date? Where should they go? What kind of plans would a guy make for a second date?
There's so many great things to do that, again, I'm going to still focus on this lightness, that are connective activities you could do, like bowling or miniature golf, or, dinner's always great. It's predictable though. Right.
Well, if we're hungry, we're hungry.
We're hungry.
That's the way I always looked at it. I mean, if you got to eat, you got to eat. I'm going to this restaurant. I should take her with me. Maybe a better way to ask this question before we even ever got into what should the plan be is, what's the second date even for, Cyndi? Here we are. First date is to get to know each other. Do we even like each other? Okay. Box checked. We're on the second date. Now what?
Yeah. The second date is going a little bit deeper. It's just a next level of going a little bit deeper. What is your vision in your life? Like, not so much, you don't have to, get your spreadsheet out and outline it.
Right.
You don't have to do that, but what are you ultimately looking for? Does that similarly match? Oh, good. Okay. Great, because sometimes people don't. For example, if one person says, oh gosh, I've got a vision in my life to, get married and have children, and that other person is not interested in that, then, you're also looking for compatibility. Are we compatible? in the areas that are really important to us.
Well, that assumes both people are relationship minded.
Right.
Right. Well, I mean, one of the things that I counsel guys to do is to simply find out where a woman is with her dating life.
Yeah.
Here we are on the second date. Obviously, we like each other, although that may not be obvious. And we can talk about that in a second. But what are you looking for out of your dating life right now? So let's say this guy just wants to be casual and perhaps collect up a harem of 4 or 5 women to have casual sex with sometimes.
Yeah.
Some guys feel that way. The stereotype is all men feel that way. And the stereotype about women is they all want to find a husband and lock him down as soon as possible. But the truth of the matter is stereotypes lie. So what I tell guys to do is find out what she's looking for from her dating life right now and see if the two of you even match up. And if you don't, after she's told you what she wants, well, then you can explain what you're looking for out of your dating life right now and see if you're still interested in continuing this. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. Matter of fact, honesty is almost always the best policy when it comes to matters like this with women because, frankly, Cyndi, women can handle it.
Absolutely. And if somebody isn't being forthcoming and honest, their actions are going to show.
And it'll lead to a lot of anger, heartbreak, and bitterness later.
Right. Which is part of the reason why we're here. That people... Right?
To limit those situations.
Exactly. And sometimes people aren't even clear themselves about what they're looking for. So it's important. It's important to be really clear. Like, what is your intention in your dating life? If your intention is to date, to become even clearer on what you want, that's great. That's a good start even.
I have to tell you, the last master class I did prior to our recording of this show at the end of August 2023 was called Know Your Type. Right? And the number of men who came to me wondering why they would ever need a master class like that. It's like, well, she's sweet and she's hot. That's good enough. That's the extent of imagination that a lot of people lend to this whole topic. We go for 4 years at least to prepare for our careers. We go and learn another language. We get in the gym to get in better shape. We learn musical instruments, but we just wing it when it comes to whoever's going to come along. When I stop looking for a woman, that's when she'll find me.
No.
She'll come along when I least expect it. Those are wives' tales. And yet, when men actually figure out what kind of woman they want. I mean, for starters, who are you most physically attracted to? What is your type? That was a huge part of this masterclass, right? But also, what does compatibility even mean? A lot of guys are thinking, well, if she's hot, the rest will take care of itself. I mean, they got the crazy hot matrix that assumes all women are nuts to begin with. And I mean, it's just unbelievable. But we have a right to know what's not only reasonable, but what it is that we want, so that we can go looking for a woman who we're going to get along with and really like. And you would think this is the most novel concept of all time. And I will tell you, the guys who attended that masterclass were like, wow, this was powerful. I just feel like I've been handed a toolkit that is going to help me light a bonfire with my dating life when I was trying to rub 2 sticks together all my previous years. I mean, that's the kind of feedback I got. And indeed, knowing what you want, women will ask this question and guys will freeze up like Homer Simpson. What are you looking for? And men are thinking this woman's already trying to get me to say out loud, I want a wife and I want to be locked down. That's not even perhaps what she's saying.
It is true.
It's more like, do you even know who you want? And when guys are like, I mean, what's a woman to do with that except not feel safe and secure, right? It's
right.
A little off-putting.
And that's the adverse side of it. When a guy's like, oh, I'll know it when I see it.
Women say it too, though.
Oh, they do. You're right. And until they get deeper into, well, wait a second, what do I value? And also, along with values comes with what kind of personality type. And, I'm sure that masterclass was amazing. What kind of personality type do I feel best around? do I feel safest and most secure around? And what are my needs? And not to make it all about you, right? We want to know what the other person's needs are, and can you provide that for them? Those are powerful questions to ask.
Well, I mean, let's go meta level on that. The woman who is right for you, if you think about it, is more likely to think you're right for her because your values match up. You look cute together, all of this stuff. Yet so many people, men and women, it's not gender specific, Cyndi, think that the person they actually want is the person most likely to elude them because, that would be too good to be true or something. Well, we need to get over ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And really, when we think we want something, that's usually based on some outer fantasy version of the, ideal man or woman. And it usually at the end of the day isn't what we need.
I talk to high-end matchmakers a lot, as I'm sure you do.
Oh, yeah. I used to be one.
Could, right? And it's amazing how they'll ask this 100 millionaire guy what he wants from a woman. And of course, if you're a 100 millionaire or God forbid a billionaire. Well, first of all, let's talk about this for a second. If you're a billionaire, you could get on the phone and arrange a conversation with virtually any woman who's single. I don't care how famous she is. You could pick a woman off a TV show and go, hey, virtual assistant or personal assistant, valet, butler, whatever he's got.
Right. My
get me in touch with her.
Person.
Right. So if billionaire boy needs a professional matchmaker, something's already awry. And this is something the high-end matchmakers will readily admit, by the way. They'll say, probably. But the list comes on Facebook. I'm looking for the right woman for this guy. He wants her to be, he's 62, but he wants her to be 6 foot tall, a former supermodel, and not want any children, even though she's between 28 and 35, and to stay out of his way all the time while he goes hanging out with his buddies. And I'm thinking like, okay, sure. That's what he wants. That's what he says he wants. But as soon as he gets that woman, he's still not going to be happy because he's never been happy before with that, even if he could find it. And of course, this woman is the kind of person who, if she was available, would be way too smart to make herself available to a guy who just wanted her for those things. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's a vicious cycle. So yeah, if you are willing to do the work, and it is work, to figure out who it is you really want, who you're most compatible with, it shouldn't strike you as odd that someone with those values is looking for you in return too. And when you meet each other and you do what I call deserving what you want, it's likely to go well.
It's so true. It's, and there's so many women that I work with that once they do the inner work and they get clear and they start dating and they meet that kind of man, they're like, wow. They just go, dating's never felt so much fun. And
go figure.
Easy.
Go figure. Yeah.
Right.
Now, we were talking about the second date maybe not being automatically an indicator that the two of them really liked each other or got along. Let's talk about what kind of wiggle room we have here in second date territory when it comes to mercy dates or, I really don't have anybody to go out with. So I suppose a second date with this loser is better than no dates at all. Or God forbid he spent $200 on, Fogo de Chao with me on the first date. So looks like, hey, he set a pattern there. So why give up the free meal ticket? There's lots of reasons a second date that probably shouldn't be happening is happening.
True.
How do you know the difference? Do you just call it out?
You do. You already know deep down.
Do you?
He took me to this fabulous restaurant. I can't say no to another date.
Oh, I think there are a lot of guys with that blind spot. I'm taking this woman out, wining and dining her and buying her gifts, and she keeps showing up, so she must be in love with me. Oh, I think guys fall into that trap repeatedly with a total blind spot around it.
Of course. And if they go a little bit deeper with that woman, they'll start to feel her resistance because unless they just, for whatever reason, are really caught up in that blind spot. And then eventually the woman she just can't go there. Why? She doesn't want to sleep with him or something else.
Well, yeah, the resistance comes in the attraction department, right? We're acting like we're just friends. She's putting that boundary up, but she's still willing to go out on dates and have me pay for her. Gentlemen, there's your red flag.
And there's no progression.
No,
there's zero progression. You can feel that.
Or regression.
Yeah, it almost regresses. And women can feel it too when a guy, it goes both ways. If a guy's going out with her multiple times and there's been almost zero progression in the connection and getting to know one another or closeness even, it's a sign on her side too.
Agreed. I think a lot of times women's girlfriends, their BFFs, put them up to the mercy date. Oh, come on. You haven't been out in ages. Give him another chance. He couldn't have been that bad. So she shows up for the second date and she's still kind of rolling her eyes and doesn't want to be there. And there's no more connection on the second date than there was on the first. There's your clue, gentlemen, that either this is indeed a mercy date or maybe she was hoping you would lead differently on the second date and you didn't. But that's really frustrating because you don't know if it's you or if it's her or a combination of both. And then it gets really confusing.
It does. And, here's the other thing too with that. Most of the time, what I, counsel my women around is give it 3 dates unless it's an absolute hell no. Unless there's, total no value connection and that. But what I find more often is that women start to open up more on the second date. And she goes, wow, this guy's really amazing. He seems to have a really great heart. He's doing, XYZ things. And women fall in love with their ears. I feel like I've said this before on your show. And men tend to fall in love with their eyes. So women, when they spend more time and they get out of their own way and their own limitations that can also sabotage themselves in love, things start to open up and they take that pressure, right, of being so outcome driven out. I see it happen with my women all the time, and they meet amazing men that are aligned with them and things work out. What do you know? Very favorably.
You challenged me there because I've never been one to suggest to my guys that a third date is anything other than an indicator of genuine attraction. Mm-hmm. I'm thinking by the second date, if she's going to bail on you, she's going to bail on you. If she's there for a third date, she's got to at least be interested. But you're counseling women to give it a magic number of 3 dates unless it's a hell no. Yeah. Now, I'm thinking there aren't a whole lot of hell maybes after 2 dates anyway. So I think I'm going to stick to my guns there. But the caveat is, if you're spending big bucks on her like a moron, okay, that's what you guys are with a lot of money throwing it around like that. You're throwing good money after bad. You're not going to get anything other than a dinner time partner that way. What you're doing is you're setting a precedent where, sure, it's like feeding the neighborhood stray cat. She'll show up if you're going to feed her for free, but you're not going to get anything more than that. And as a matter of fact, she might not respect you as much or be as attracted to you if, ironically enough, wait for it, you hadn't spent so much money and she felt like she was being bought.
Yes. That's a lot of pressure.
Yes.
Too.
Right. Yeah, of course. So let's say these two get past the second date. He invites her out to a third date. We can pretty much, I'm thinking we can pretty much rest assured together that we at least like each other. Then comes the third date pressure for sex because all dating advice says you should have sex on the third date. Well, that's a bunch of nonsense, isn't it?
I agree with that. No, you need to wait until you've gotten to know one another and you both feel safe and comfortable. And most women, at least my women, they want to be exclusive in that arena with someone.
Well, some women, fairly enough, some women do want to get horny on the first date.
For
it's
sure.
Kind of like a case-by-case basis.
There's
really.
that too. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I'm just anti-timeline.
All right.
Like a hard timeline doesn't fit anybody's needs except on rare occasions. So when you're saying we got to be exclusive by 90 days or he doesn't love you or anything like that, you have to call her 3 days after you get her number. Those timelines to me have always seemed so artificial.
Right.
Yeah.
It is really a case-by-case basis. And I do think that a healthy connection takes time to grow, and for both people to feel, okay, I want to go to this next level physically.
And you know what? Kind of looking back on our conversation here, Cyndi, a second date really can get complicated because it's not a throwaway like a first date. We're either going to like each other or we're not. This is either going to go well or not. And it's not like, hey, we're off and rolling. We're on our third date now. We must actually like each other. This really is where you're on the bubble. The second date, it could go well or it could not go well. And I think if we as men and women being in relationship or potential relationship together, just keep it warm and light and we're honest with each other, we're either going to be attracted to each other or we're not. And if we bring our best self and she brings her best self, the right thing is going to happen. We're either going to get along or we don't. Don't you think?
I agree. And it's so easy to overcomplicate it, but yeah, go, be light, have a good time, make a genuine connection. And if it's aligned, the right thing is going to play out. But you brought up something that's so important. It's being really honest about, where you're at, what you're seeking, and not being afraid, because I feel like men and women both get fearful around this. Oh, I'm afraid to say that I'm not looking for anything serious because, most women want that guarantee and I want a date. And, so you can put yourself into a big time conundrum by not being honest.
Yeah, I agree 100%, as I typically do with you.
Right.
And I think the big mic drop here is, guys, if you find yourself on a first date with a woman and you don't know whether to ask her out on a second date or not because you can't read her, or if you're on a second date and you think it's going well or you're not sure because, once again, you're having a hard time reading the room, hey, get off the fence and just suggest that the next date happen if you want it to happen. Because after all, what Cyndi's been saying here is women don't necessarily have the wherewithal to send all the right signals and say all the right things, even though we as guys have been taught they do. That is a myth, and we as guys have to stand in the gap, hold space in that situation, and step up to the plate. How's that for a bunch of platitudes in one sentence?
That was a lot, and it was good. Mic drop, Scott.
I thought I threw down. Yeah, there's two more right there. Her name is Cyndi Olin. She's from Tucson, Arizona, and she brands herself a dating and relationship coach with Create Your Own Luck in Love, which is a brand I really love. Cyndi, when these guys go over to mountaintoppodcast.com/Cyndi, Cyndi, what are they going to find?
Yeah. So I put something together for you guys, dating scripts that bring a woman closer. So if you're interested in a woman and you want some framework that'll help you down that path to open her up, then you will get it. So in the link, you will find dating scripts that open her up and make her want to say yes.
Wow. Objective information from a woman who knows what she's doing. What more could you guys ask? mountaintoppodcast.com/Cyndi, Cyndi, knows her stuff. Good stuff. Great show today. Matter of fact, I love where this went. We ended up talking about first dates, second dates, and third dates, all kind of with the second date sandwich there in the middle, much like we feel when we're on second dates.
Right. And I hope it was helpful because I feel like this topic isn't talked about all the time. And it's so important. Like, where do you go after the second date? I even think, where do you go if you get intimate too soon? If you feel that way and then it's like, what do I do next? Right? There's so much more.
Speaking of what do I do next, that would be the greatest topic ever for when you come back real soon.
Yeah, I love that idea.
What if we had sex too soon? I don't think we've ever talked about that.
We've never talked about that. And there's so many things that could be done that could actually create a closer connection and build upon that.
You bet. Let's do that next time you're on. I love it.
Yeah, I love it. Okay.
But for now, thank you for being on this show. We always appreciate you, Cyndi.
Oh, thank you. I love being here, Scott.
Yeah, likewise. These are always fun shows. Gentlemen, MountainTopPodcast.com is waiting for you. Visit our sponsors, Origin in Maine, HeroSoap.com, and TheKeyPort.com. When you visit any of our three main sponsors, use the coupon code Mountain10 for an additional 10% off. You can check in on the master classes that we've done, including the one that happened in August 2023 on Knowing Your Type, among plenty of others. We have covered all kinds of topics there over the last year and a half or so. Surely one or more of them will appeal to you. Go to mountaintoppodcast.com/masterclass for all the details on that. Get on my phone. Talk to me for 25 minutes free. It can be Skype or Zoom too, by the way. When you click the big red button at the top of mountaintoppodcast.com, that first 25-minute consultation with me is free, guys. It won't cost you a dime. That opportunity to get on my calendar and so much more, including a host of free downloads, is there for you at mountaintoppodcast.com. And until I talk to you again real soon, this is Scott McKay from X&Y Communications in San Antonio, Texas. Be good out there.
The Mountaintop Podcast is produced by X&Y Communications. All rights reserved worldwide. Be sure to visit www.mountaintoppodcast.com for show notes. And while you're there, sign up for the free X&Y Communications newsletter for men. This is Ed Roy Odom speaking for the Mountaintop Podcast.